Kanye West can't test market for his song catalog, seeking 35 times gross profit. Sources estimate how much Ye's songs are worth and what his share of a publishing payday could be. This was written by Ed Kreisman, published originally on September 19th, 2022 for Billboard.com. I wanted to cover this topic because usually on my channel I don't talk about music that often, but I do love music. I studied music industry studies at Loyola University and graduated in 2013. So I do have, I would say, a cursory understanding of like the music industry as far as how mechanicals work, publishing, copyright, songwriters getting credit and points in contracts and that sort of stuff. And it's just something I'm generally interested in. Kanye West as a character or a personality or as an artist, I'll say this. My opinions about Kanye West as a artist, he's one of the greatest artists in hip hop history, period. Nobody can take that away from him. As a person, I believe he's a very conflicted, confused man. And me personally, I'll probably never forgive him for the quotes of slavery was a choice. But I still wanted to talk about this topic because I feel like there's a lot of misunderstanding about Kanye West and his moves in business. And I would just like to delve into this topic to learn more about it and share my opinions about it. Now, selling your music catalog is not unheard of. Lil Wayne sold his catalog, or at least sold the Young Money catalog, as we can see on okplayer.com right here, and I'll put the link for this article in the description of this video. Lil Wayne reportedly sold Drake and Nicki Minaj's catalog with his masters, and so last week we learned Lil Wayne sold his masters to Universal Music Group for $100 million. A new report unveils that Drake, Nicki Minaj, and Tyga's catalog under Young Money were sold along with Lil Wayne's catalog. Per Music Business Worldwide, a pending lawsuit filed by Wayne's manager revealed Young Money's entire catalog was sold. So Wayne sold his catalog for about $100 million, and also Justin Timberlake earlier this year. Justin Timberlake sold his entire music catalog in a deal worth millions. And this is from yahoosports.com, and I'll put the link for this in the description as well. It looks like Justin Timberlake won't be hanging on to his music catalog until the end of time. Timberlake recently sold the entire music catalog from his 20-year career to London-based firm Hypnosis Song Management, per a company announcement Thursday. The purchase includes all copyrights of tracks Timberlake has written or co-written. The deal also encompasses any music the Suit and Tie singer released in association with movies, television, streaming, cover music, or performances. The agreement, which includes the rights to around 200 songs, is worth $100 million, the Wall Street Journal reported. So Wayne sold his music for about $100 million, or sold the Young Money catalog for about $100 million. I believe that was either this year or last year, and Timberlake sold his catalog for $100 million this year. So it's not unprecedented for very, very popular artists, or maybe even smaller artists as well, to have their music bought and sold on the market, right, as commodities. Let's go to the article here from Billboard. Kanye West has been quietly and intermittently shopping his publishing catalog, an asset that generates about $5 million a year for the hip-hop star, sources tell Billboard. Over the past 10 months, representatives for West have met selectively with prospective buyers to explore what kind of valuation his song catalog could fetch, these sources say. So generating $5 million in publishing and mechanicals and those sorts of things from your music is a lot of money to make. That would definitely put Kanye in the top 1% of earners in the United States. But I will say that for somebody like Kanye West, his expenses are probably very high. I know he owns multiple properties, has many assets, many expenses. He has 4 kids with Kim Kardashian. I don't know if Kim has him on papers for child support or anything like that, but I will say Kanye's expenses are probably super high, so I would not be surprised if the money he generates from his publishing goes right into a hole of debts and other expenses that he has. So he might be looking for a larger payout to cover all of those things. While no price tag has been put on the catalog as far as Billboard's reporting could determine, it is understood among those who've been queried about the catalog that the superstar is seeking an eye-popping valuation as much as 35 times net publisher share or gross profit. To entice buyers to pay that much, a multiple beyond the upper end of current catalog valuation pricing. Sources say that the buyer would also get the opportunity to sign a go-forward publishing deal with the multi-platinum artist. So what they're saying is his music right now generates $5 million, but he's asking for much more because of the value and the worth of saying you own Kanye's songs. And when you own a song, you can do so many things with it. You can license it in video games, you can license it in movies, in TV shows. So just because the music is played, that generates profit. But also, if you know how to use this music and get it to the sources where it will be shown in movies or TVs, you can generate a lot of revenue. And that's called synchronization. Okay? So Billboard estimates that the songs in West catalog generate upwards of 13.25 million dollars in publishing royalties annually. But because songs from his later albums can have anywhere from 10 to 24 songwriters credited for each song, including songwriters on the sampled songs, it's difficult to come up with an exact valuation for a share of the publishing payday. Look at the catalog piecemeal. Billboard estimates that West has a 35% share of the songwriting on his first four albums, while on the later albums it appears he has a 20% share of the writing. Sources say West's share comes to $5 million annually. Okay, so the entire catalog generates a lot, but Kanye's piece of it is about 5 million, so they say. So I'm reading this article as I go and getting the information and just reacting to it. So I'll say this, in the beginning of Kanye's career, he was a part of that I would say neo backpack era where, in the early 2000s, artists were sampling a lot because that went out of style with Swiss Beats and Pharrell and other producers doing original production, Timbaland as well. But Kanye was one of the newer generations of producers and rappers with the whole Rockefeller camp, who with Just Blaze and other producers who were very sample heavy. So Kanye's early album, like The College Dropout or Late Registration, had a lot of samples on it. Okay, you can hear it when as soon as you turn it on, right? So the artists that he samples, all those soul singers from the 70s and 80s that are the backbone of the songs, like slow jams, etc., they get a cut of all of those songs as well. Now in Kanye's later career, when he's doing stuff like, I don't know, My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy, Life of Pablo, Jesus is King, etc., I believe he's slowed down on using samples as much, like sampling old 70s or 80s songs, and he just has more writers interpolating music as well as doing original production, though we do have songs that still have samples like Bound to and stuff like that off of Yeezus. So I think Kanye's catalog is still worth a lot of money even with all of those samples, because some of those songs are hits on the first album. The midpoint of his career, My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy is my favorite album of his, and if anything, if I were Kanye, I would at least try to hold on to My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy, because that album has so many jams on it. And also College Dropout too. Jay-Z went through a big fight with Dame Dash, trying to get ownership over his first album, because your first album as an artist is usually the one that means the most to you because it takes a lifetime to make. So I think Kanye should hold on to College Dropout, and if anything, My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy, but either one or the other, because that owning your first album is just like, I don't know how to describe it. I mean, but if Kanye is willing to part with it, who am I to say, what he should do with his music? Anyway, I'll continue reading. At $5 million in annual income, a 35 times multiple suggests a $175 million valuation. While most superstar songwriters nowadays often seek a 30 times multiple, that's rarely, if ever, been reached with even the highest profile deals. The Bob Dylan publishing catalog, for example, is said to have gone to UMG for a 28 to 29 times multiple. Last year, sources told Billboard that some members in the Billy Joel camp were also testing the market to see what kind of valuation his catalog would fetch. It was unclear if Joel himself was on board with the play to test the waters. The Joel camp started out with even higher hopes before coming down to seeking a 35 times valuation. But potential suitors found that multiple too rich for their appetite, and no deal progressed to the point at which due diligence was performed, sources indicated. Now, I wish, because when you have a multiple, you need a base number, right? They started off with the base number of Kanye's, 5 million or 13.25 million, and multiply that by 35 times. But with Bob Dylan, they don't say what the multiple was. I assume Bob Dylan's catalog was generating millions for him in revenue and income, and then you multiply that by 28 or 29. But I wish they put the actual number so that we could compare. But just looking at Justin Timberlake's catalog selling for 100 million, Lil Wayne's Young Money catalog selling for 100 million, I personally think Kanye is aiming high to get that $100 million mark to start off in the negotiation. But I'm sure if you ask Kanye, or if Kanye were to address this news publicly, because right now this is happening all in private about him selling his catalog, if he were to come out into an interview and somebody like Nori from Drink Champs were to ask him, like, how much do you think your catalog is worth? Kanye's going to say 1 billion. $1 billion, maybe even more, something like that, something crazy, because he's hyperbolic, right? But I think $100 million is probably most likely where this deal will end up. We'll see in the next few months, maybe in a year, what will happen with this catalog if he does sell it or go through. Kanye is very I hate to say this word because I'm not a I'm not a therapist, psychoanalyst, anything like that. But he is bipolar when it comes to his moves and things like that. But I think something of this magnitude is probably being handled by his managers, his business people, and that sort of thing. But we did see a few days ago he stepped back from the deal that made him a billionaire with Gap. So I would not be surprised if this deal doesn't go through, if it does go through, but at a much higher or lower number, if he just wants to give it away because now he's saying that he's doing Christian music and he doesn't want anything to do with secular music. So, I don't suggest he do that for the sense of, not being called a hypocrite, profiting from, the past music he made about, bleaching girls' assholes and shit like that. But I would say, like, Kanye, like, do whatever you think is best for your music, honestly. Do whatever you think is best for your pockets and your family. Because as a black man in America, we just got to get the change. You got to get the coin, man. Just chase the coin. Get the money. Put it in your pocket, man. Because, to be honest, man, we're in a white man's world, and anytime you can come up, you can come up. And especially if you did it legally, right? Selling music. I'll continue. West's catalog presents several challenges for potential buyers. For one, his catalog hasn't matured yet, and a number of his songs are still enjoying hit status, which means the amount of revenue these hits generate annually is likely to decay over the near future, and it's still unclear at what level of activity each will stabilize. That makes it difficult for investors to predict their returns. Of course, that won't prevent them from trying. Justin Timberlake, another artist with a number of hits that are likely still in the decay stage, was able to sell his song catalog to Hypnosis Songs Capital for at most a 28 times gross profit, Billboard estimated at the time. So, the decaying of music, talking about Kanye's songs, they're hits now, but they possibly will not be hits later, and it will be hard to place these songs in, like I said, movies, videos, TV shows, and etc., because these songs might not last. But I think I'll say this. I think there is a big market for nostalgia. People always love an old song, right? Flashing Lights is what, 15 years old now, right? I'm making this video in 2022, and Flashing Lights, I believe, came out like 2008, 2009, right? Close to 15 years, and that song is still a hit, People love nostalgia. So I feel like the decaying of these songs is somewhat true. Of course, they won't be big hits, but Kanye definitely has a few songs that are like classic staples for people of my generation and possibly people of a younger generation, because they've been exposed to these songs through memes and TikTok and Instagram and all sorts of stuff. I will say that this is why it's important for artists to make timeless music, to try to make music that transcends the trends of now. Because if you make a timeless song, you can get paid for that song forever. But if you're trying to make a song that only is hot for right now, or it's capitalizing off of the trends for right now, this song will generate maybe millions of dollars for you now, but how long can you hold on to that money, and will that song continue to generate that sort of income? If you look back at like what are the number one hits from 20 or 30 years ago, a lot of them are artists or songs that we've never heard of, even though it might have been a number one hit in the world, right? If you don't believe me, go check out that website, the website about like what was the number one song in your birthday. There's a website to find that out. You can go to that website and see what was the number one song on the day you were born. And unless you were born like very recently, like 1998 or something like that, the songs from like the 90s, 80s, 70s, they're really not that popular anymore. But yeah, I think West has a lot of juice in his catalog for nostalgia. Okay, let's continue. Another problem: the songwriter splits on some hit songs in West catalog are still in dispute. That may make prospective buyers hesitate since they don't know exactly what share of these songs West will wind up with after these disputes are resolved. So, like I said, Kanye West has a lot of samples on his songs. Sometimes samples go into like arbitration, or somebody sues because a sample was used illegally on the song, or they believe it was used illegally. Also, Kanye West has a lot of writers on the song, and probably also a lot of uncredited writers on his song. And these people are probably suing or disputing the ownership of the song because they want a piece of the royalties and that sort of thing. All right, I'll continue. Finally, West's unpredictable personality adds a further element of risk, potential suitors say, to what they already view as an expensive deal. Yet West hit power is undeniable with 69 top 40 hits, of which 20 songs reached the top 10, and four of the latter topped the Hot 100. His catalog has accumulated 34 million units worth of album consumption activity, while 10 of his albums have hit the number one spot on the Billboard 200. On a going forward basis, he doesn't show any sign of letting up on his hit making activity. So, this is a plus for Kanye West, but also a negative. So, Kanye, like I said earlier, is a personality that is bipolar in his nature, right? And I don't mean that in a derogatory way. So, Kanye, if you're watching, please don't go off on a Twitter rant on me. I'm just expressing what the world is seeing in your behavior, right? And yeah, please don't roast me because I'm sweating. I just got finished having some hot tantric sex. Anyway, let's continue. So yeah, Kanye's personality draws a lot of divisiveness in people, right? You either love Kanye or you hate him, you can't stand him, or you think he's the greatest thing ever, right? And I want to say that yeah, this is the X factor, the unpredictable factor that makes it hard to quantify Kanye's catalog, because on the one hand, you could be buying the catalog, spending $100 million on somebody who tomorrow might tweet they hate gay people or something, or like Kanye, you know, has a problem with I don't know, homosexuals or something like that. I'm not saying Kanye would say that. I'm not saying Kanye's homophobic, but he is now like a hardcore Christian. So what if he comes out tomorrow and says, we need to make sodomy a sin in America, right? And now you're holding on to this catalog that a lot of people on in the Twitterverse and on social media will say, oh, this guy is homophobic, right? Why are you making money from his music? Like how R. Kelly, when R. Kelly finally went down from all of his years of predatory behavior on young women, right? Now a lot of the streaming services took down his music, and whoever owns R. Kelly's catalog is holding the bag. You're holding basically shit in a bag, right? What can you do with R. Kelly's catalog? Who's gonna want to put R. Kelly's music in a movie, in a TV show, etc. Right? Kanye is very unpredictable in that way. He can insult the black community as much as he wants, but for some reason, a lot of black people seem to forgive him. I'll never forgive him for slavery was a choice and all that stuff. But come say come sa, what can we do? Now, he has a lot of hits, and this last sentence is very important. On a forward going basis, he doesn't show any sign of letting up on his hit making activity. I believe Kanye still has the ability to make hit songs because he has a die-hard fan base, number one, and number two, he is a musical genius, right? Let's say he sold all of his catalog right now, everything from College Dropout to what was his last album, Donda 2, right? Something like that. I believe he could drop another College Dropout. Some people might think I'm crazy. Real hip hop heads might think I'm crazy. But I think Kanye has the ability, the talent, and the wherewithal to make another hit if he wanted to. Because I always remember My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy, right? And how it came out after 808s and Heartbreaks, I believe. And everybody thought Kanye had gone off the deep end, even though low key he did create like a new genre. Because after 808s and Heartbreaks, every rapper has taken parts of that. I mean, Drake got his whole style from 808s and Heartbreak, right? But after after 808s and Heartbreaks came My Beautiful Twisted Dark Fantasy, which is a phenomenal album. Probably a perfect rap album, right? I believe Kanye, when he gets in his bag, he can drop hits. So I think he might be able to do this again. He could make another catalog of another hit songs and sell it for another 100 million or 175 million or whatever he wants to do. It might be harder doing it with, Christian music if that's the route he's going to go, but it also might be easier because there's a big market for that. We have a lot of right wing, conservative, reactionary Christian extremists in America, and they got dollars to spend. They got dollars to spend. The biggest lie they ever told you is that working class, poor whites voted for Trump. That's not the truth. A lot of the people who voted for Trump were actually upper middle income people, right? And those people, they love them some Jesus. So Kanye can tap into that market. I'll continue. According to sources, efforts to test the market for his catalog, which is currently administered by Sony Music Publishing, has slowed down in recent months. To some music asset buyers, that indicates that the West camp may have landed a bidder willing to meet the songwriter's pricing expectations, and the two parties are in the process of putting together a deal. Or more likely, the efforts to shop the catalog failed to generate the pricing expectations of the West camp, and so the West music assets have been withdrawn from the auction block. Still, other sources say that the West catalog was never actively shopped, but like all hit songwriters, West has received offers from private equity and other music asset buyers. So because all of this is happening in the dark, and possibly this will not become big news in the music blogs until after it's sold, and then everybody will say Kanye is crazy for selling his music catalog, or if it never happens and most people never talk about it, the music industry is very, very shady, right? I'm not saying this as somebody who's an expert in the music industry. I personally have not been in the music industry. I just studied music industry in university, and of course I'm a fan of music and hip hop, etc. But I want to say that, this business, a lot of things related to the ownership and the contracts and the deals related to music happen in the dark, happen in those boardrooms, happen in those tall skyscrapers in New York, and those backroom deals made in LA related to music, right? And we'll probably never know exactly who will own the music, who the owners of the company are, etc., or even disclose. They might not even disclose the amount of the deal. Some things in this will probably be unknown. Whether this is even happening at all, it's all speculation, because they're saying here in the last sentence, West assets, right, are valuable, and when you own something valuable, people will buy it. If you open a restaurant and this restaurant generates $1 million in profit every year, right, somebody will offer to buy it, right? That's just what happens with valuable assets. So I'll finish this. Billboard reached out to the West management camp and to Sony Music Publishing, but neither responded to a request for comment, as they should, because when you're negotiating a business deal, you never talk to the public. You never let out the types of negotiations that are happening, because you never want to let the left hand know what the right hand is doing, and vice versa. So I'll say this, owning your music catalog, if I was Kanye West, but of course I'm a poor English teacher, right? So who am I to talk about what a billionaire should do, right? I understand that. So I'll say this. If I were a multi-platinum, multi-Grammy award-winning, multi-chart topping artist like Kanye West, me personally, I would try to own my catalog. And I would put all that energy that I put into fashion and architecture and all this other stuff that Kanye West is into, I would instead try to do a reformation, have a revolution in the music industry publishing sector. Because the major publishing companies are just a few. There are only a handful of companies, 3 or 4 companies, that own all the entirety of music, right? Or all the biggest songs for the majority of at least American music. I don't know about other countries, right? So if I were Kanye West, I would try to open up my own publishing company, purchase catalogs from other major hip hop artists or R&B artists, and try to make sure they get better deals and paid better parts of their royalties. That's what I would do, honestly. But turning down $100 million check when your music is only generating $5 million for you, and you have to pay for, I don't know, your 5th home, or your, I don't know, secret kids, whatever Kanye West has, right? He probably has a lot of debts and expenses. $100 million can change your life, and it can set your kids up for, it could set up generations of wealth if you manage it right, but that's just my opinion about this. I hope Kanye West makes the best decision for him and his family, and we as fans of music are just going to continue to watch the show and enjoy. So anybody watching this video this far, don't take it too seriously. I am a guy who has some passing interest in the music industry, read a lot of books like this in university, and I'm still, writing songs, playing music, and stuff like that. But I'm just a fan like everybody else, and I'm just giving my opinion about a famous artist. So thank you for watching. My name is Simon Hill. Peace.